Hi, it's Charlie here, your friend and support in building the best version of you in this crazy world that we are living in. So let's talk about conflict. It happens and it's gonna happen. You're surrounded by all sorts of people day in and day out, and there's no way that you're all gonna have the same opinion and feel the same way about things. So there is gonna be a difference of opinion, there's gonna be conflict. But when that happens, most of us hate dealing with it. We avoid it, we possibly bury our head in the sand, we have reactions that we don't connect with, and there lies the problem. We can have negative feelings about ourselves. It can affect our confidence because we end up going, why did I react like that? Why did I say that? That's not like me, and I don't want that person to think badly of me. It can have negative effects on relationships as well, because maybe in that moment you say something that's quite aggressive or quite nasty in that moment of feeling defensive, and maybe you're feeling attacked in that moment. So then, like I say, the relationships can really suffer. So let's talk today about some tips and ideas that can really help with dealing with conflict. It can help with de-escalating conflict, it can help with avoiding conflict, and it can also help with the resolution of conflict. So tell me what you think in the comments below. Maybe tell me some of the tips that you use in order to avoid conflict. It would be great to share them. Now, the first thing to say is that we have to kind of be aware of why these things are happening. Why, when there is frustration, anger, whether it's coming from us or from the other person, why we can have these kind of overwhelming reactions to it, and how we can have these kind of overwhelming emotions. So there's another video that I did called Mastering Your Emotions, and I'll put the link to that in the description below, but go and check that out because it kind of lays a foundation for what we're going to talk about now. All right, so let's get to it. Tip number one, and this is what I say is the foundation of good communication, and that is the ability to actively listen. Now, we hear things all the time, but do we actually listen? So what we mean by active listening is the ability to fully understand what somebody is saying to us and why they're saying it. Now, the challenge with active listening lies in the fact that I've got my own personal filters, and those filters have been made up of every single experience that I've ever had in my life. So it's the upbringing I've had, the family I was born into, the education, the friends, the good times, the bad times, all sorts of things, all of my experience to kind of create these filters. So when I hear things, what happens is that those words go through my filters, and it may sort of filter out certain words. It might create certain emotions towards those words, and they're all very personal. So what happens then, with the best intentions, is that it sort of becomes about me, because I'm connecting emotionally to what that person is saying. Whereas actively listening is sort of taking that away, taking me out of the equation and keeping it about the other person. So really trying to appreciate what they're saying and why they're saying it, and trying to see their perspective, trying to appreciate their point of view. So we also have to think about it when we respond. So if somebody says something to me like, I've had a really sort of awful disagreement with my partner, what might happen then is I hear that and I think, oh, well, I've had disagreements with my partner in the past. Oh, don't worry about it. I'm sure everything will be fine. You know what you should do? You should do this, you should do that, you should do the other. So then what we're doing is, again, we're making it about us. We're giving advice that we think is right, but it might not be what's right for the other person. Now, when we're dealing with conflict, what can happen is that somebody may say something and it may be aimed at us. Like, I don't feel like you didn't listen to me in the meeting the other day, or you don't appreciate all that I do for you. And those words are going through our filters, and perhaps those words are attaching to emotions that we have from past experiences. And we can then possibly, put our barriers up, or we can get defensive, or we can get aggressive about hearing these words because we're making it personal, rather than going, all right, let's just appreciate what this person is saying, why they're saying it, and maybe trying to see the situation from a different perspective. So if you're in a disagreement with somebody, and maybe you can sense that it's building, or you're trying to resolve an argument that you've had, really try to say to yourself, how are you feeling? What is your perspective on this? And then don't talk, just listen, just really listen. And as you're doing it, recognize that perhaps you're being triggered by some of the things that are being said. So take a deep breath at that moment and just keep listening. All right, it will really pay off in the long run because you are keeping your defenses down, possibly, and not getting hot and heavy and quick to respond and react. So actively listen, try and see the other person's perspective. Tip number 2, we have to then be aware of our body language, because we often send out cues and signals that mean more. Our non-verbal communication, the things that we say without saying anything, means more than actually what we're saying. So if somebody is talking to you and maybe telling you how they're feeling their side of the story when it comes to the conflict or the argument, make sure that you're not, pulling faces or rolling your eyes or crossing your arms or starting to turn your body away from somebody, because what you're doing there is you're escalating the issue. Yes, okay, you may be actively listening, but your body is communicating a lot, and that might make the other person a bit more defensive, maybe make the other person a little bit more angry and frustrated because you're not listening, and then things can escalate and the vicious cycle can continue. So try and keep yourself open, try to keep your hands sort of down by your side, keep yourself still, keep the facial expression quite neutral, and maybe just a few head nods just to show that you are listening and you're processing what is being said. All right, but try and be aware of those non-verbal cues. All right. Tip number 3, and this one can be quite hard, and that is to take accountability. It might be that you have to say sorry. We don't usually like saying sorry because it's vulnerable. We make ourselves vulnerable, and we don't like being vulnerable because we think maybe the other person is going to take advantage of that. But also we can, because again, our filters, really believe that we're right. It makes sense to us. Or I feel like I was justified in my reaction. But actually, we may need to go, even though I have a certain feeling, my reaction was maybe a bit over the top. It may have been a bit scary for the other person. It may be sort of unjustified. So that's when we might have to turn around and go, I'm sorry for the way that I reacted. I'm sorry for my tone of voice. I'm sorry for the things that I said. But it also might be, again, if somebody was to say in the work environment, I don't really feel like part of the team, I feel a bit excluded. In your mind, you might be going, I don't exclude you. If you want to be involved in the team, you've got to make more of an effort. But in that moment, actually what we've got to do is we've got to go, okay, maybe I could look inside myself and go, could I do more to include this person? I can't just be thinking, well, get yourself involved. Maybe I have to actively do something like invite them to things, make them a cup of tea, or invite them to lunch, or just spend a little bit more kind of time with them. So I'm recognizing, listening to what they're saying. I'm processing it. I'm taking accountability for my actions, and maybe I'm not as inclusive of that person as they would like me to be. And maybe there's some things that I could do differently. So don't be afraid to say sorry. Don't be afraid to take accountability. But what's important is that you don't make a blanket apology. Oh, I'm sorry for that. So again, in an argument, not just like, I'm sorry, my fault, because you want to move on. You want to kind of get past this because it's uncomfortable. You're just going to say, I'm sorry, just so we can kind of get on. It is important for your own well-being to feel like you've been heard, to make sure that your feelings are put forward. So when you apologise, think, okay, I'm going to take accountability for my part, but I'm not apologising for everything. So it might be that you do say, I'm sorry for my tone of voice yesterday. I recognise that I was really hungry and you caught me at a bad time. I was hungry, I was stressed out, and perhaps my tone of voice was inappropriate and I took that frustration out on you, and I would like to apologise for that. So you are being strong. You are recognising that you need to take accountability. And what that means for the other person is that actually, if you let your barriers down, if you are a little bit vulnerable, then that gives them permission to be vulnerable as well, because you're creating this safe space. So never see vulnerability as a weakness. It's actually one of your greatest strengths. My last tip number 4, is think about your words. We, again, are filters. Going back to the filters, we can have a certain word association. So for example, if I was to say to you, what comes to your head when I say the word red? Now it might be, put your comments in the box below just to prove the point. It might be that you go apple, blood, and I'm going a rose. Because yes, we all speak English, we understand English, but we've all got different associations. Those words conjure up different images and feelings and emotions. So we do have to be a little bit careful about the words that we choose, because we don't want to end up triggering them. So it's just being a little bit mindful, a bit careful, that's all. And also, when we are trying to express ourselves and what's upset us, it's important to say, I felt like your behaviour was a little aggressive yesterday. Rather than going, you were really aggressive, because you were really aggressive is sort of attacking, and you're making a kind of a statement about somebody. You're accusing them of something. Whereas if I say, I'm feeling like the behaviour was a little bit aggressive, then you're talking about how that made you feel. But you're also recognising that that somebody's behaviour is not necessarily who they are. So again, going back to the hungry, I suffer from hunger. I don't know about you, but if I'm hungry, I have a short fuse. So what happens there is that somebody comes to ask me something, whatever it might be, I might slightly get a little bit aggressive because I haven't eaten yet. So in that moment, if you accuse me of being aggressive, I'm not an aggressive person, but because I was hungry, my behaviour was perhaps a little bit aggressive in that moment for me. So just be careful about how you express yourself. Don't really accuse somebody of being or doing something. Just talk about how that moment made you feel. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it's given you some good tips. If you have any questions, if you want any clarification on anything, then please do get in touch. Leave a comment below. I really welcome them, and I will respond the best that I can. But just remember that, again, don't avoid conflict. And maybe let's change the name. Maybe let's just see it as a disagreement. Maybe seeing it as developing our relationship. Because actually, when you are able to effectively deal with these arguments, confrontations, what happens is you actually are building a better bond with that person. So you're actually creating a better relationship. So don't avoid it. Don't bury your head in the sand. Take a deep breath, process your feelings, process what you would like out of the situation, and go up to that person and deal with it head on. See you next time.